Hello, hello, hello. It's our fifth edition of our Health, Finance, and Wellbeing series. And today we will be talking about conflicts in relationships, a plus or a minus. If this is the first time you're joining us, I will just introduce myself a little bit. My name is Funmi Ajayobe. I run the Exclusive You Nutrition and Lifestyle Improvement Program. I I run this program to help people who want to address their nutrition and weight loss issues using their own diet because that's the only way you can sustain a healthy lifestyle. Extreme diets, we know they don't work. If you eat one diet and not the other, or one carb, or I'm sorry, one food group or not the other, it's not sustainable and it's not even healthy. Proteins, carbohydrates, and fats are all essential nutrients, macronutrients that our body needs. And so I, since have been helping people to look after themselves in a healthy way. And I run an online program, and I'm also an author. I'll talk about my book later. But anyway, this health, finance, and well-being series started this year, January, and this is the fifth edition because we didn't do one in May. And so today, I want us to look into conflicts because, I don't think there's ever anyone who would say they haven't been in any conflict situation before. Is it important to be in a conflict situation? Is it healthy? Do we need to do it? Or isn't it? Although conflicts, they are a negative connotations. They're normal and natural. It doesn't mean something is wrong. It's just how we handle it that matters, our response. No one is conflict free, ranging from siblings to partners, husbands and wives, friends, associations, groups. You meet somebody at the grocery shop. Oh, you're in the queue before me. Oh, you didn't meet me. All sorts of issues. As day to day, as human beings, as we interact with one another, we have situations that cause conflicts. And so today we are focusing on conflicts in relationships. And yeah, most people's response to conflicts are from their parents or their background or exposure and the people they mix with. So it will differ from people to people how we handle and address conflicts when we come into contact with one. And so today, yeah, we will be looking at different questions. And I've got a special guest with me today. She is Dr. Tokumbo Odubanjo. She's a medical doctor. She's specialized in histopathology and kidney pathology. She's passionate about helping people, to build successful marriages, to improve, their well-being. She's married and blessed with two beautiful daughters. And so we're going to have her today talking about conflicts in relationship, and we will surely be having her at some other time to talk about the health aspect of well-being. So, welcome on today's edition of the Exclusive You Nutrition and Life Improvement Program on the issue of conflicts in relationship. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, and whenever I have a guest on my show, especially if it's their first time, I really like to know a bit more about them. Let's just lighten up a bit. Let's know about their personality, why they do what they do, why the profession they are, and why they are so passionate about whatever thing outside of either their professional background or anything else that they're passionate about. I'd like to know. So, can you just let us know why did you go into? That's a mouthful. Histopathology and kidney pathology. What does that even mean? Anyway, give it to us. Let's know a bit more
How
about
did I find myself here? First, I chose to be a doctor, fully believing that this was God's plan for my life. So it's just God ordering my steps as I went along. It was just God saying, do this, do that, and me just being sensitive. So I thought He wanted me to be a doctor. I chose to be a doctor. And then going through medical school, I saw that I was interested in pathology. I just found it fun. I love to read it. So I chose pathology. And then along the line, I developed an interest in kidney pathology. So that's been my journey. It's just God being at the right place at the right time, and letting God direct my paths. But
Yeah. Oh.
I feel I feel this is where I'm supposed to be.
Mm.
There's so many people who go to work, who earn a lot of money, but they're not really satisfied. I really feel like God has orchestrated things in such a way that I've landed in the right place for me. So I just feel grateful.
Fantastic. And in fact, that keyword, God's calling, this is what, and a lot of people, and this is an issue because when we're not doing what we're called to do, there's frustration.
Exactly.
We're not striving, we're not flourishing. We don't see sense of satisfaction and joy in what we do. And that in
Exactly.
itself is an issue. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I'm so pleased that you are enjoying what you do. And really, I mean, we know that especially a lot of Black people, so many GoFundMe pages, kidney this, kidney that. So honestly, I think that will be our next one. We'd love to hear what do we do? Why is this happening? Especially within the Black, is it a Black issue? That's a topic for another time. So let's kick on today because it's 9 minutes past and people want to know this conflict issue. What is conflict? Are they necessary? Why do they happen? What can be done to resolve it? Is conflict-free relationship? Is it a healthy one? How does it impact relationship? What are deal breakers? How important is communication in relationship? These are the things we will be talking about today. So let's talk about what is even conflict. What is it?
Well, the bottom line is when you talk about conflict, you're talking about a disagreement,
Hmm.
but it's a disagreement that matters for something. So
Hmm.
it's a difference in opinion. That's the bottom line. But it's usually a serious one or a protracted one when you're talking about conflict. And I'll give you an example. I may choose to say tomato, you may choose to say tomato. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, how both of us say it doesn't count for anything. So that's not going to bring conflict. But if we're trying to decide, if we're a couple, we're husband and wife, and we're trying to decide what secondary school to send our child to, we know that where our child lands in future may
Hmm.
be impacted by that decision. Oh, I don't
Hmm.
like boarding school. Oh, I like this school. I like to see them every day. That's serious.
Hmm.
That's conflict. So there's a difference in opinion, and what you decide on has grave consequences. So neither of you can be flippant in making that decision. So you feel strongly, the other person feels strongly, and that decision has value,
Hmm.
and you don't agree. So what do
Hmm.
you do then?
Hmm. Hmm. So basically, we can't, like we've established, we can't avoid it. We will have situations where we disagree about things. So what do we do about it? So that's another question you're asking. So that is exactly a valid question. So what do we do about it? How do we handle these conflicts when we have these differing opinions about issues that affect the two of us as a family, as a married couple? Or as a sibling or whatever, how do we handle it successfully without causing more conflicts? Because if conflict is not addressed properly, that could lead to another conflict that could now have a net on effect on families and extended family and friends, and it could be very chaotic if we don't handle it properly. So how can we handle conflicts then when we find ourselves in a conflicting situation? What exactly should we do?
So, as you've said, it's not something that we can avoid. We will not always have the same opinions. No matter how compatible we are, how aligned we are, we're still going to have the difference of opinions. But what do we do when we have these different opinions? There's destructive conflict and there's constructive conflict.
Mm,
Constructive
mm,
conflict is that we're fighting the right way. We're fighting in a way that draws us together, that brings us together. Destructive conflict is that we're fighting in a way that tears us apart. There's certain ways in which you should never deal with conflict. You shouldn't kiss and make up, which is what some couples do. We've
mm,
argued, we've shouted, and then we just hug and kiss and make up. Because what that does is that it sweeps the problem under the carpet, but only for a time.
mm,
So it's coming back to confront you. What we want to do with conflict is to sit down, lay down all the cards. Why does this matter to you? Why do you have this opinion? Sometimes, as you talk about it, you find out that the reason he has that opinion makes it invalid.
Hmm.
But we need to listen to each other, and each side needs to feel heard. Because sometimes when you're talking to couples, they say, oh, he doesn't listen to me. When I'm talking to my husband, I do not want him to just accept my opinion, because I know he's an
Hmm.
adult. I know he's an entity on his own. I know he's autonomous, and I respect all of that. But I want him to listen, and I want him to consider what I've said. And
Hmm.
once there's one of us who feels like, oh, she just never listens to me, oh, he just never listens to me, you don't trust the other person to take your opinions on board at all. So it's not you wanting to force your opinion. There's some people who, every time you point out to them that they're wrong, you're attacking them. They don't want to be
Hmm.
accountable. There's some people who have preconceived opinions. As you're talking, uh, it has a view and it's coming at you from that view. You're talking to your friend, and your friend is like, oh, I saw you talking to that man. Are you cheating with him? And I'm like, I'm not cheating. There's nothing going on. But all married people cheat. I can't help you with that. I can do what I can to be the right person, but I can't walk on the opinion of me that you've built up in your imagination. So if you're talking to your friend or your partner or somebody, and it's obvious that you have some preconceived ideas, that I didn't lead you to be concerned about me. I've not damaged your trust in any way, but you're coming at me as if maybe I've done something wrong. I'm not going to deal with that. That's difficult to deal with. I like this
Hmm.
picture. There's this meme on Facebook of this elderly couple. They were having a fight, and then it started to rain. And the man turned his back to his wife. It was obvious that he was trying not to speak to her, but he held an umbrella up. He had one umbrella. He didn't use it for himself. He held it and covered his wife. And because
Hmm.
tomorrow morning or 2 days later, this fight would end, and then you still be husband and wife. So you have to fight in such a way that when this one is over, you don't look at this person and continue to feel hurt and continue to have bitterness in your heart. So you need to not fight to finish.
Hmm.
And you need to not say things that you regret in future. When there's a lot of mudslinging, it drives friends apart. It drives
Hmm.
couples apart. It makes it difficult to make up. Even when you've made up in future, you continue to look at the person and say, oh, is this how this person views me? And that's bad.
Hmm. That's really, really important because I like the what you said, don't sweep into the carpet. And I
Mhm.
would like to ask because I feel like maybe men are more likely to sweep into carpet like women. Because for me, I know for myself for sure, if we don't sort it out, we're not dealing, nothing else is happening. We need to sort that issue out. But to me,
Mhm.
it seems like men are able to deal with it and do every other thing and like, yeah, I thought we're sorted. No, we haven't discussed this. So you are saying that it's quite important to communicate about that issue, solve it, and not sweep it under the carpet because that will cause a buildup of negative emotions. And then later, when things happen, it explodes. In
Mhm.
fact, I was reading something somewhere from, I forgot the woman's Esther, something her name is called. She said, the real fight is not about the towel, about, oh, he was late, you're always late, or not helping out, or you always do this, he always does that. He said there are kind of three main categories of things that people are fighting about. It's either power and control, closeness and care, or respect and recognition. That is going to be one of those categories that you're fighting about something. So maybe you're fighting, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Fine, that may be that issue, but the underlying issue behind that thing could be either it's control, it's either you're wanting attention, you wanting love, you want emotion, you want recognition, or in some instances somebody is just controlling and very overbearing and things like that. And so it's quite important to deal with the root cause of the issues rather than just to deal with the symptoms and then
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, yeah, just clear the surface and then forget the underlying. So one needs to sit down and communicate about the root cause and clear that so that things can be better. And so basically, so what you're saying is communication is quite important. And how often should one be communicating in a relationship? And what exactly should one be communicating about?
Well, we should talk about everything. What you said about the men trying to sweep things under the carpet. Uh, I I think I kind of agree with you that men have that tendency. because they feel that when we talk about issues, it's us bringing trouble, or they want to shy away from conflict. But healthy conflict is good for relationships, because as you fight each fight, you will understand each other better. You will understand his likes, his dislikes, and you're stronger because of it. If a man and a woman are talking about some plan, and the woman says, "This is what I want. Oh, I'm going away for 2 weeks. I want to bring my mom." And the woman says, "I want to bring my mom." The man will say, "Oh, okay." But deep down, is thinking, "Why do we always bring your mom? Why don't I bring my mom instead? My mom wants to come to Lagos also." But he doesn't broach that subject with the wife. And the reason he doesn't broach that subject is that he says, "Oh, I just want to walk in peace towards her. I just want peace." Now the wife leaves, and then he goes and he brings his mom. And that's going to result in a fight. So at the end of the day, the peace that you're looking for, you're not going to get it. Then what you said about fighting for recognition, fighting for other things. They say if a man is not satisfied, if you're married to someone and you're not satisfying him sexually, he may start complaining about the taste of your stew. So, and when they say love covers a multitude of sins, there's so many things that you can gloss over when you're satisfied in the areas that are most important to you. If what I want in a man is for him to be the provider, and he continues to drop money, his job is going well, he's well paid, there's certain things that so many women won't complain about. It may not be there. It may not be engaging with the children. They won't complain, because the fact that the most important thing is done makes them look away from all those other things. So you're right in that when we have conflict, oftentimes it's other issues apart from the ones we're saying, which is why we really have to talk through. And sometimes you need to hear what your partner isn't saying. They say when you and
The
your
unsaid
partner,
word.
yes, when you and your partner are really well aligned and you understand each other, you can understand their silence, you can understand the things they're not saying. You can read the many parts to conversation. There's body language, there's facial expressions, there's all of these things. And as you go along, if you talk to someone who's been married for 20 years, they kind of get a sense of, "Oh, my wife didn't say a word, but I knew how she felt about this." Or "My husband didn't say a word." Or "This person's my childhood friend. We've been friends for 30 years. I can tell how she will feel about this, even when she's not there." Those are all the things that you learn, and they empower you. About communication, we have to talk about everything. Left to me, as you said, the women, we want to talk about everything. I want to sit down, let's trash every issue. My husband is like, "Okay, but you already said that. Okay, I hear you. Okay, I hear you." And you know that he's just dismissing you. Sometimes I tell him, "Do you like this top?" He says yes. Then 3 days later, I try on the same top and I show him, "Do you like this top?" And he's like, "Oh, haven't you shown me this top before?" I'm like, "But I think last time you probably didn't even look back at all." And he's like, "No, how come I remember the top now?" I said, "Because most of the time, you probably just say yes to dismiss me, and it may not be a true opinion." So there's something about feeling that this person really hears me, this person really gets me. I think maybe it's the need of most people in every kind of relationship, in friendships. You just feel this person really, really gets me. She knows the things that tick me off. She avoids them. She knows the things that I like. She tries to do them. And that strengthens the relationship. But we have to talk about everything. We have to lay the cards down. Don't sweep anything under the carpet, because the peace you are looking for, you won't get it eventually. These things will blow up in your faces. And
Yeah. So you're
yeah,
saying don't say yes because you just want to satisfy them or to avoid peace or just to so for peace sake and everything. So
exactly.
you're right. I know somebody who, you know what, they're saying something. They're saying, oh, their wife is not doing A, B, and C. I don't want to be specific because they might be watching this. And then they are like, and then, but I'm still like, but did you ever communicate this to them? They never
Exactly.
said it to them, but they are expecting what they haven't communicated. They're expecting that their wife should automatically know. Meanwhile, she doesn't know because she hasn't been communicated to.
I
And it's
know.
quite important that we should be having regular by the way, oh sorry, I need to let people know, thank you so much for all those that are watching and joining in. If you're joining for the first time, welcome, thank you. We will be asking you to please put a question. If you have questions, please post them, let us know so we can pick them during the course of this interview, or actually we would leave the last 15 minutes of this program to answer all your questions. And because we're using an OBS, an open broadcast service, you would need to give permission to Facebook or maybe YouTube for you to be able to put your comments, for us to be able to see them live. Otherwise, we won't see them now until after the show. But if you give permission, we will be able to read your comments now. So thank you so much. Please share if you think that this will also bless somebody, you think it will be useful for somebody to listen to this. Thanks for joining us. So we're talking about conflicts in relationship, a plus or a minus. We've talked about conflicts, why it's necessary. We're currently discussing about communication in relationship, because sometimes, as we know, people don't often talk much. They assume the other party know, but if if you're not specific, you need to lay all the cards down and let them know that this is what I want, this is what makes me happy. And sometimes people use negative things. I know somebody, instead of like, oh, okay, you serve somebody with, in Nigeria, well, I'm from Nigeria. If you're watching and you're not Nigerian, we will usually, when we eat our local food with our hands, we put water in a bowl and you serve the person to wash their hands first before eating. And instead of the husband to say, you forgot the water, whatever, he's sitting there thinking, and I was there, I was watching, it's like, oh, so I don't need to wash my hands. And I'm like, that is a negative connotation, Why are you like, oh, I don't need to wash? Already, that is creating a conflict environment. We have to show love in our communication. We need to, empathy, love. Like, oh, honey, can I have a bowl of water to wash my hands, please?
Exactly.
That's different. In Nigeria, there's an adage. Sorry, I'm a Yoruba girl. I love adage. They say something like "pele lako olabo," which means sorry.
Exactly.
There's a female and negative sorry. So there is
Mm.
the I'm sorry, or oh, I'm so sorry, which is genuine, which is intentional, which is in a caring, in a loving way, rather than sorry, which the other party knows that you are not genuinely sorry, and they're not going to, it's not going to change things. So when we are having conversations and communications, we should be genuine with each other. We should be truthful. We should say it in a loving way. We're both human beings from different backgrounds. We have different opinions about things, and we may not agree. We definitely not agree about everything, but we need to be able to come to a middle point where we can lay our cards down and see the key points and the issues, and see what are the pros and the cons of this, and then understand. Don't just be too close-minded and just, because you have this in your head, you're not going to see the other person's point of view. It is my view only. It's a selfish
It's
approach.
very important. Be willing to consider the other person's view.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be willing to see that. Perhaps don't be absolute about things. Oh, never, never, never. No, because I am the man, so never. No, the man and the woman. I think I would like you to talk a bit about that, because again, what's the role of man in this? Because or women? Because I think sometimes some men, we just like, I am the man, so for that reason, no matter, I don't even want to hear your opinion. I'm doing this is what we're doing. You are the woman, so shut up. Or sometimes in some relationship, it's the woman. The woman is just so overbearing, authoritative. She just slaps the man down. And men, they want ego. These are kind of things that I'd like to hear from your view. I mean, your opinion. What you think about that?
So my view about power play in a marriage relationship is that, I'm Christian, and the Bible is very clear about who should lead the home. And the best way to describe that is that a ship cannot have two captains. The man's leadership is not about superior intelligence. It's just about God's hierarchy for the home. So if we're in a ship, the ship is sinking, and the two of us backing orders. Some person is saying, do this. Another person is saying, do that. There's no hope for that ship. We're going to sink. It's the same way that your family will sink if you both are trying to be the head. There's a reason why the man has been designated the head. The Bible says that before God, there's no Jew, there's no Greek, there's no male or female. When we stand before God, he doesn't consider my husband's opinion superior to mine. My husband doesn't have an antenna that is able to pick messages from God better than mine can. God speaks to me the same way that he speaks to him. So it's not superiority. It's God's plan for the home. There has to be a captain and someone has been designated the head. But Ephesians 3 verse 21, the scripture that everyone likes to quote, is just beyond there. It's 22, 23, just beyond there. But in 21, the Bible says that both of us have to submit to one another. And that submission doesn't make you the second captain. It doesn't make you the co-captain. It doesn't put you on the same level as your husband in the hierarchy for the home. It just means that the husband also has to be accountable to God and to you for the home to work. So if you find a man who says, I don't care what you think, I've said what I need to say, and uses veto power all the time, it will continue to lead. This is how I like to say it. It will continue to lead, but nobody will be following him. He will be leading himself. Outwardly, his wife might be acting submissive, but she's not following him. She's making plans that exclude him. She's making plans that are parallel to his own because he's shown himself to not be a leader that the family can trust. So if you have a certain set of rules for yourself, a certain set of rules for your wife and the children, and you show yourself to not be an accountable leader. No, I always tell people there's no God's will for any one member of the family. When you're a married person, God can't call me, wake me up in the morning and say, move to America. It has to carry my husband along. It has to carry the children along. So when the husband keeps making this kind of situations, this kind of decisions, because I have veto power, the wife says, why don't we pray about, no, I've decided we're moving. And then you move and things are difficult and your wife is not on board. It becomes a problem. The next time you come up with your next idea, there's no one following you. There's no one following you anymore. So as you lead, the man who is leading has to be very careful. And the person who is leading should know that this is weighty because this decision that you're making, it has grave consequences for the family. And because of that, you have to carry everyone along. Even the children, we would call them and say, do you like this thing? These are the plans that we have. Do you want to live here? Do you want to do this? Because once people are not being carried along, you will lose that followership. No matter how you look to the outside, you know when a woman isn't following you anymore. So men have to be really careful and pay attention to their own submission is about being accountable, showing that truly these people can trust you to lead them and you're making decisions for their welfare.
I mean, they say a leader is someone who has a follower. If you don't no longer have a follower, that means your relevance, you no longer have
It's
relevance.
lost.
You're not
It's lost.
really doing what you're supposed to do. So it's quite important that you kind of, again, this is, I believe, where communication is quite important because you have to be both ways, communication both ways. So it's upward, down, downwards, up, even in organizations, up, down, down, up, parallel. There should be, it's a holistic communication is quite important in a relationship so that you're and then also it's good for listening is quite important because sometimes people they're hearing things but they're not listening. And then that's why you would hear people like, yeah, but I said that before and I keep saying it again because the person isn't listening and they're not getting the right information. And I mean, you mentioned something earlier in terms of some people may be like, as long as they pay for the family, because I want to talk about deal breakers here. This is now turning to the feminine side of things because, we're all different. And some people might feel like, okay, well, for me, I mean, people have maybe you should even explain what's a deal breaker and how it's important is that because some people don't even understand what we're talking about deal breakers here. It might be what does that even mean? So what's a deal breaker and how should one how should one look into one's deal? Should one is it legitimate in terms of if I have a deal breaker, for example, and it's different from the husband? How can we manage the deal breaker in a relationship? Okay, that's perhaps what
So
I'm trying to.
I would typically use the term deal breaker when I'm talking about a couple that's in courtship. So if you are in
Oh,
courtship, compatibility is very important. The Bible says, can two walk together except they be agreed?
Hmm.
Amos 3 verse 3. If someone is going to Abeokuta and another person is going to Ibadan, you can't travel together.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
there was one person who went to an agony column and was asking advice, and she said, oh, the guy I'm in a relationship with, he won't do this, he won't do that, and I've talked to him about it, and he says that's how he wants to live. So the lady was then advising her and saying, oh, this relationship has to end. She really didn't need anyone to tell that to her. You're not agreed about very important issues. You want to keep your name. The guy
Hmm.
says, no, you must take my name. And you feel strongly about it. You're the
Hmm.
only child of your parents, you're a girl, and you promised your parents you will keep your name. And the guy says, no, you can't make a hyphen with my own last name. You just have to bear my name anymore. So you can't, in my view, if you keep your father's name and you hyphenate it with my name, it's you being one leg in, one leg out, and I'm not going to take it. So you don't agree about that. That's a fundamental issue. You're not
That's a
going to
big.
go past it.
I will never even think about that, but that is
I
quite
know,
important, phenomenal,
but it
because
matters to both of you. There's a
you haven't
difference
even
of
started.
opinion. It matters to both of you. So you can't go forward. You don't need an agony column to tell you that that relationship isn't going to work. That's a deal breaker right there. It's time to
Hmm.
move on and not waste your time. Marriage is all about compromise, but if you find an issue that you can't compromise on, it's time to move on. When you're
Hmm.
married, it's different because marriage is till death do us part. That's what we Christians believe. So if you get into marriage, it's different, which is why you really need to be careful in choosing in the first place.
I was gonna say a godly marriage.
You have to be really careful. I tell
If it's
people,
not a godly marriage, maybe
I
it's not
say,
working.
if your husband is the head of your home, you need to ask yourself, even from doing courtship, that if I and this person, we have differing opinions, would I be willing to defer to him?
Hmm.
And that question alone is very telling. It tells you that you can't go forward with this person because you like him. You feel he's loving, he has a sense of humor. I like being with him, but I can't defer to him. I don't think his opinions are good enough for me to allow him to lead me. That's a deal breaker.
How do you then solve it when you're already in the marriage? What if you're already in the relationship and then you have some big issues that you have to deal
If
with?
you're
How do you?
already if you're already in that marriage, sometimes you're married to someone who has all the wrong views about everything. It feels because I'm the man, I should never be challenged.
Hmm.
When you tell him, this thing that you live here, it's a problem for us. I need you to do some work around the house. I'm very tired. I go to work. A lot of men do this thing. Traditional roles of a woman, the man brings all the money, the woman keeps the house, she cooks, she cleans, she takes care of the children. The modern day woman goes out to get money as well. Some women are earning just as much as the husband, some are earning more than the husband. Now, the
Hmm.
husband are pretending to not know that if a woman goes out to work, she does 9 to 5, or she does even more hours, and she comes home in the evening, she's going to be tired. So, the
Hmm.
cooking, the cleaning, and the taking care of children should ideally not be left to her alone. But they all act
Hmm.
like we don't really get this. So the man still comes home. Sometimes he closes work 2 hours ahead of the wife. He comes home, he stretches his legs. When the wife comes down, you've come in too late. What are we eating? But if he
Hmm.
boils rice such that by the time the wife gets home, there's food at home, it's not going to turn into a woman because he cooked for his wife.
Hmm. Hmm.
But a lot of men make that mistake where I think part of the problem, I was talking to a friend, I said part of the problem is that the mothers have not empowered them.
Hmm.
And if you haven't empowered them, practice makes perfect. From when we are
Hmm.
5, once my mom gets up, it's time to make lunch. She should not call you and say, Tokumbo, follow me. If you don't follow her, you'll be in trouble. The girls just get up and they follow her. So you start walking in the kitchen, pass me this, pass me that. By the time you're 10, you're fully grounded with helping to cook something or the other. The men, no one teaches them. We leave them alone completely. Then when they get married, we wonder why they're standing back when it comes to household chores. They
Hmm.
can't start them. So what I've tried to do with my son is everything that my daughter does around the house, I've taught him to do also. And
Hmm.
even when we were starting, even though I decided that I wanted both of them to be empowered, I found that it was easier to work with a girl. She's a
Hmm.
natural. When you say go into the provisions compartment and bring something, she will find it. If you send my son, that item might be the most conspicuous item. It's right in the middle. You
I
would
think
have to be blind
you're
to
a
miss it.
doctor. I think this is a man. It's genetics. No, it's
Exactly.
not genetics.
And he's
It's a
not going
man
to
thing.
find it.
Men
And
don't
he's not
find
going to
things.
find it. So I found myself, I felt like this boy was a liability to me. So I wasn't calling him as much as I was calling my daughter. She had to point it out to me to say, Mommy, I like to watch TV too, you know, because every time you're cooking,
Hmm.
you ask me to come stay with you. And my brother doesn't help. So
Hmm.
it's something to pay attention to empower your son, empower your daughter, such that this person is not a burden to someone in future.
So the women have a responsibility to
They
play
do.
in this conversation. So we need to build them up, bring up your child in the way he should go. When he grows, he will not depart from it. So, and
Exactly.
you are right in terms of men and women working, because I think in the olden days, the women will look after the kids, the man will go to the farm, bring the farm produce home, the woman will cook and sort the house and whatever. But now men and women are equally working, and right, you rightly said, sometimes the women are even working longer hours. There was a time actually I was working more hours than my husband in the
Exactly.
it's long time ago. And so, but my husband, honestly, I mean, bless him. My husband is
Oh,
he cooks the best jollof rice ever. He
nice.
cooks the, in fact, that, he's a chef now. He likes,
Nice.
he's not a
Lovely.
professional chef, but he does, he makes his own ice cream, he makes his puff puff, he makes
Oh,
dried rice,
nice.
he makes
Nice.
everything. And
Oh,
how did this start? And I must say this. I remember I was at work one day. He knew I was coming late, and he was home, and he was like, Fumi, okay, so that was the day I think it was a Friday. Like we do jollof fries on Fridays. So it's like, okay, so for me, what do I do? So I said, okay, blend the pepper and the tomatoes and the onions. Okay, so what do
oh,
I do? I talked him through it over the phone. I got back home, the
wow.
rice was ready. I tasted that rice. I'm like, my goodness, this was nice. The following week, he didn't even call me. He just
Oh,
cooked it. I got home. I just like, oh
oh,
my goodness, food was
oh.
ready. Since that time, in fact, now I don't even know how to cook jollof rice again. It doesn't
He's,
taste
he's
nice.
a man of wisdom.
He just cooks so well. It's his specialty now. He does that and every other thing that he loves cooking. And I'm blessed because I'm not taking it for granted because I, like you rightly said, some men will come and cross their leg, watch telly, and I know. In fact, I know one man. He will come back like hours. In fact, it doesn't even work that much. It's not a matter of coming back. And then he's home, and then one will come very late, and then they will be abusing her. Oh, you have
Mhm,
not done this, you have not.
mm,
And I'll be like,
mm.
oh my, this is just not right. Poor
No.
woman has worked so hard. You've been home pretty much all day, and
Mhm.
you are not even helping out. And you are still thinking. So I think we need to educate ourselves, especially our men, because they think it's an African thing that the man should not cook, but
Mm.
forgetting the reason behind. There's a reason behind things.
Mhm.
If your wife wasn't working, it's a different thing, and you're the only one
It
working, it
is.
doesn't really matter. In Yoruba, I'm going to bring in another adage now. Tí ọkùnrin bá réjò tóbìnrin bá pa, kéjò ṣáà ti kú ni. If a
Mm.
man finds a snake and the woman kills the snake, as
It
long as the
doesn't
snake
matter
is
who
dead,
does it.
somebody just has to kill the snake. It's just so
Mhm.
that we're safe and we don't get hurt by the snake.
I
So there's
know.
no necessarily a particular job or this is role for you, this is role for me. You should, for example, in a house, there are some roles that, when my husband starts taking up the vacuum and everything, in fact, the kids like, Daddy, I think you just enjoy this. It's a therapy for you. You just
Mhm.
enjoy doing it. It's
Mhm.
just, you're talking, it's vacuuming your legs. And
Mhm.
I have a friend who said in church today, I think she's watching as well. She's like, Aya will be sweeping your leg as you're sitting, almost to say, just go home, and that's who he is. And basically, with what I'm trying to say with this conversation, and for men who will be watching this now or watching later, is we all need supports. And women
Mhm.
too should support men because we all have our
Mhm.
different strengths. I can do
Mhm.
DIY, but my husband can't. My husband cannot paint. He can't do all those things that you'll expect a typical man to do. My husband
Mhm.
can't. he doesn't. He's more of a demolish. You want to demolish a building, give him a hammer. He will demolish a 21-story building with his hands. He's
Mm-hmm.
that physically active. But all these gentle things, he's not. It's not his skill, and so it doesn't really matter. And I think for women too, we need to understand that, especially in our relationship, that let's come together to agree. United we stand, divided we fall. In a home, we just want we want successful home to be built, and it needs the cooperation of the two parties involved. We
I
don't have to
agree.
give it one person to do, because otherwise a home divided against itself will not stand.
Mm-hmm.
And we shouldn't sweep things into the carpet. I realize this, we've got 43 now. Just to say, for those joining or just coming in, thank you just for joining us again. We'd like you. I've got a message from Lisa here. Thank you so much for wonderful godly counsel. Amen and amen. That's to you, to Kubo. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe there are other messages on, because I can't see. This is because she probably allowed StreamYard. So if you haven't given, you need to give StreamYard your permission to allow you to for us to read your comments. So if you have any questions, please drop it in the comments so that we can look at your questions later. So we've talked about communication now. Let's talk about counseling. I mean, you did say something earlier in terms of deal breaker should really be addressed before one goes into marriage. And when you're already in it, then you still have to communicate and see how you can deal with things. So let's talk about counseling in relationship, because I think some people, because again, we're all different. Ideally, it's good for the two parties to try to solve things without going externally, because you don't want to put all your dirty linen outside. But what if it's a struggle with one party and they're not getting it, and they're not listening to a message like this, so they don't understand, and you've tried your best and it's not working? What should you do? What kind of counseling should one take? Should one just restrict counseling to church because, yeah, if you're both Christians, or should one go external, or at one point should you choose one form of counseling over another? So what is your take on that?
So I would say I'm a church person, but I would tell you that what you need is a wiser person. It may be a younger person,
That's the key
it
word
may
there.
just a wiser person, and someone who has advantage over you in understanding in that area. It may be in the church, it may be outside the church. There are times when you're in a church, you love your pastor, you believe in the work that he's doing, you want to support the work that he's doing, but his own marriage is not working.
Hmm.
And it's the reason his marriage is not working. He has many strengths, but his marriage is weak.
Hmm.
And you see him, you see the way he behaves. I was sitting in the house of a senior colleague, and he was eating dinner. They had invited me to eat dinner in their house. And he called the wife. The wife was still cooking something. I think she was bringing something extra to the dining table. And he called her and said, come, come, come. Then she came, and then he spat some bones out of his mouth, and then dropped in his wife's hand. So I said, and she didn't see anything wrong with that. She just took it, went to the bin, threw it away. And when the wife walked away, I said, what was that about? He said, these are the feet of a goat. And that he's told the wife several times that these feet are the things that the goat walks about all around the neighborhood. I can't be eating my food and be seeing this feet in my food. And because I've warned her about it several times, every time I see it, I hand it to her to tell her that this is not okay. This shouldn't happen. So
Oh my
I
goodness.
just thought it was being quite negative in his approach, in the way he was dealing with her. Yes, we should take counsel, but this person is older than me. He's maybe like 10 years older than me. But I've seen how he treats his wife. So I wouldn't necessarily go and ask him for advice about marriage. So it's just someone who has advantage over you in that area. You shouldn't feel condemned if you need to ask for help. At all times, the communication lines have to be open. Both of you have to be talking. If it's friends, if it's a couple, You both have to be talking and being able to resolve your issues. But if it happens that the other person doesn't see your side, you've tried to explain it, you've broken it down, you've explained it in all the ways that you can, and your partner can't see what you're saying, you may need a third party to help explain it to him or her. There
Hmm.
was a couple that said to me, my wife says the Bible says we should give to the poor. So she doesn't give me anything. She feels that I'm not poor enough to deserve a gift from her. So it's my birthday, it's Father's Day, it's Christmas. She's not giving me a gift before. We've been married for 11 years because she feels that the Bible says to give only to the poor.
Wow.
Where do you start from? And he's tried to explain it to her that it makes me feel loved when I tear a package and it's something for me. I do it for you
Yeah.
all the time. I do it for you all the time. You like to receive presents from me, and it's just never happened before. You wonder where people get these opinions from. But if you've
Hmm.
talked about it, you can't seem to resolve the issue. You need a third party, and you shouldn't feel bad. You shouldn't feel like maybe your marriage is not as strong as the next marriage because you need help from the third party. What is most important?
Hmm.
As you said about the snake, one person finds it, one person kills it. It doesn't matter who does it. What we're trying to do is to place everyone in the areas of strength. So I
Hmm.
have a friend who, growing up, she was really close to her dad. She went everywhere with him. She went to the mechanics workshop with him. She knows everything about cars. If your car stops, she'll tell you, this is what the problem is. This is the carburetor. Before she calls the mechanic, she knows what it is. Her husband doesn't know anything about cars. So she deals with the car for the family.
Hmm.
So it's just you doing what would help the, and don't feel condemned, don't feel we other people don't need help, other people have never spoken to anybody about their marriage. If you need a
Hmm.
third party, just find a wiser person, both of you
Hmm.
prayerfully consider who to approach and speak to
Hmm.
that person. It may be your pastor, it may not be your pastor. It's just in the Catholic church, my parents are Catholic, so we got married in the Catholic church. They actually appoint a couple, an older couple. Usually they would have been married for maybe 20 years, 30 years, and they appoint them as sponsors. And the
Hmm.
understanding is that if you have challenges in your marriage, they're the go-to people. It's the natural default to just go to them, talk to them about these issues, and they would advise you because they've seen everything. They've been married for many years. They know the different angles where problems can come from, and they can tell you, you shouldn't keep hammering on this issue. This may not never change, but will you be
Hmm.
able to accept it? Do you want your home to stand? And all
Hmm.
valuable information that you would find useful, wisdom from years of experience.
I actually like that sponsorship thing because again, that's somebody who has they've gone through that waters before. They have experience, and then they can provide support for you. But in terms of what you just said, just before that, in terms of going to somebody who you said a keyword there, you said not necessarily older. They might not even be older, but they
Mhm,
are knowledgeable, they're
mhm.
experienced, and they
Exactly.
understand things. And that's quite
Exactly.
important because sometimes age is a number for some
Mhm.
people, and it
It
may not
is.
necessarily. And also, because I like the fact that you said, try that first and then try, because sometimes, in fact, a lot of pastors, their relationship are shaking. I mean, we know the ones that comes out, we see those ones. But
Mhm.
even the ones that aren't out necessarily, there are problems. The foundation is shaky. And that's because sometimes they don't have enough time for each other. They're focusing on church, 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 church. They're neglecting their family. The woman is a human being. Maybe for her, she wants compassion. Every woman wants love, and that's not happening, for whatever reasons.
I
So
know.
sometimes the pastor may not necessarily be the right answer, because we've had issues nowadays. We've seen what's happening in a lot of Christian families now, where there are issues. And I mean, sadly, for this one woman who everyone talked about recently, Osinachi, where she had to pass away, she's been to the church didn't provide support. They're like, staying. So
Mm,
sometimes you may need to see a professional person, because
mhm.
pastors, they're not counselors necessarily. They might be biblical, they might teach you in terms of biblical way, but sometimes you might also need a professional help in terms of putting somebody who is neutral. Because sometimes, some pastors, because it's not their, they just see things that, oh, he's the man is the head of the man. They just
Exactly. So
treating,
some
interpreting
pastors
the
are
Bible.
way too patriarchal. So as you're
Yeah,
talking to them, everything is, oh, you're not the one who is not submitting. Your husband
thank
is the
you,
one, they will always be on the side of the man.
thank
So it's
you.
not going to be neutral and it's not going to help your relationship. So you
exactly.
may not be a good person to talk to.
Absolutely. I watched a program on telly. I wasn't even watching the program. You walk past, you listen, and I saw this, or maybe it was on Facebook. And this pastor, very big man, I'm not even going to mention his name, but I was so, what's the word? I was so angry actually. I don't know what word is worse than angry. This woman was there, and this was in a church with a microphone, and then he was saying to the woman, and this woman was saying, the man, I can't remember where she went to or whatever. It was a family function. The man gave her whatever. I can't remember the story now. Anyway, this man locked the woman outside. She slept outside in front of the house. She didn't go anywhere. She didn't even tell anybody. Woman was saying it, and the pastor was like, "You two woman, you're not submissive." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this woman is suffering," and because she's in the church. And I'm like, what else? The man has confirmed from wherever she went, you knew where she was or whatever the scenario was. I can't
So
remember.
the man would even be empowered to
She's
abuse his wife. Now he has the
the,
backing of the pastor.
the woman suffered twice. Suffered that the
Mm.
man, wherever she slept
I know.
outside, overnight
Oh,
in front. She was
what a
seated on the
shame.
step.
Mm.
And then this pastor is also saying you too, and then still blaming this woman. This woman was crying. Honestly, I could feel the heartache of this woman, and I
Mm.
felt that was just unfair. I wish I could just go if there was a phone line to call and like, excuse me, pastor. I know you. I mean, this is just totally wrong. It's
Mm-hmm.
unfair. So now you've
Mm.
given this man the power. Now he's going to be similar to your put the food in the woman's hand. Okay, just spin it for me, and again, I think a lot of these things. Okay, I think it's even though people kind of use religion as a guise, people are not following what Jesus asked of us.
Exactly. Mm.
Love. What is the
They're paying
definition of
lip
love?
service to being Christians, but not really following what the Bible says. I know.
Exactly. Because love is a key word that we have to. The Bible says, "Love your neighbor as yourself." What you
Mhm.
wouldn't do to yourself, don't do to your neighbor. So it doesn't matter whether your neighbor is a man or a woman, a young child, an adult. It doesn't matter who your neighbor is, and your neighbor is not your next door neighbor. Your
Mhm.
neighbor is the people who you have a relationship with, you
I
interact
know.
with on a daily basis. Derogatory words to your wife or to somebody you
Mm.
love. How can you use that? How can
Mm-mm.
you behave and put something in the hand of your wife like, yeah, go and bin? It's like a kid. That's
Mm, exactly.
humiliating. That is, the woman's self-esteem is lowering that. How can she feel? You're like, okay, so this water you give me. Oh, so you don't think I need to wash my hand? I mean, as if you're talking to a kid. This
I
is,
know.
I
Not
mean, those
fair
kind
at
of
all.
behaviors we should, I mean, love is patient, is kind, it doesn't envy, it
Mhm.
doesn't boast, all these things. We just
Mhm.
read them. But love is an action word, is a doing word,
Yes.
it's not just a word, it's a
Mhm.
verb,
Mhm.
it's a doing word.
Mhm. And
And
actions speak louder than words. So we can say, "Oh, I love my wife. I take care of my wife," but if your actions are contrary to what you say,
hmm,
then
hmm.
we have to go by what your actions say.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Absolutely. So, I think you might have actually mentioned about this, but I just wanted to finish this and then in closing because we have 5 minutes to go. How can
Mhm.
one manage conflicts in a relationship in a healthy way? So now we've established that conflicts we will always have it, so we can't avoid it. We know that we have to understand how to. We don't sweep things under the carpet. We have to communicate, talk about things. So how can we manage it in a healthy way so that we will have a wonderful relationship? Well, in our relationship, what exactly can we do to make sure that we're
I
managing
think
conflict
I think
effectively
one of the
when they
things to
happen?
say is that conflict invariably means development for one of us. One of us or both of us may have something to learn from conflict. And I'm going to give an example. If you are in a workplace and you find that one of us has body odor, what will you do?
Hmm.
Uh, I have been in that situation before where somebody that we worked with always came to work in the morning smelling nice, but once it's from 2 p.m., it became difficult to sit by her because maybe she
Hmm.
sweats a lot and she doesn't
Hmm.
wear deodorant.
Deodorant.
And there's that conflict within you. Should I tell her? Should I leave it
Hmm.
alone? But if you don't tell her, she's just going to go forward with that problem.
Hmm.
So, one of the things to think of with conflict is that sometimes you may be the only person who has the access to say that thing. It's
Hmm.
like when a couple, a man has been married before, a woman has been married before, and you both get married and you blend your families. There's certain ways in which you cannot correct the children of the man
Hmm.
that you don't share. There's no extent to which they love you that would allow you to be able to have certain difficult conversations with them. If
Hmm.
we're married and my mother-in-law is crossing the line, no matter how close we are, there's certain issues that I can't discuss with her because it will be
Hmm.
misunderstood. It's
Yeah.
my husband's place to say those things. With this person who had body odor, I thought, yes, she needs to have this information, but I'm not close enough
To be
to
the
her
one to tell
to
her.
broach
Hmm.
the subject. It might be misunderstood because you always have to come from the angle of love. And I'm not
Hmm.
sure that she feels that convinced of my love for her to
Hmm.
trust me enough to have this conversation with her. So I called one of our friends and said, can you talk to her? And the friend said, they went everywhere together. In my view, they were like best friends. And she said,
Hmm.
yes, we're very close, but this is too sensitive a matter and I can't discuss it with her.
Oh my goodness. Then who is going to do the job?
Exactly. If you don't do that job, that person goes forward with a deficit. That's how to
Hmm.
think about conflict. Ultimately, one person might learn, both of you might learn, and you develop and you're better for it. That's why
Hmm.
ultimately conflicts in relationships should not be avoided. I had a
Hmm.
friend who was talking to a matron that she worked with, a doctor like me. And she told the matron, oh, I've been in this relationship for 2 years. He's my soulmate. We're so compatible. We finish each other's sentences. We haven't had our first fight.
Hmm.
And the matron said to her, I've been married for 20 years. That guy is pretending.
Absolutely.
So he's so desperate to marry you that he
Hmm.
can't take chances.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you have not experienced this man at all. You are
Hmm.
dealing with a facade,
Hmm.
and there will be too many surprises. Courtship is for getting to know each other, for getting to see if you are compatible enough, and if you need to, should go forward. But if the
Hmm.
other person is play acting, and you're
Hmm.
not dealing with a real person, you're not really learning to know them. And all the
Hmm.
valuable information that you should bring to bear as you are trying to decide whether to marry this person, you don't have that information because you have not explored issues together. One
Hmm.
person is pretending, is acting 24/7
Hmm.
because there are not two people who are so alike. Siblings fight. They say the tongue fights with the mouth.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
everyone fights. There will always be a difference of opinion. But if one person always keeps quiet, he's not going to keep quiet forever. So he
Hmm.
may be keeping quiet now because maybe you are the kind of girl he wants to marry. Maybe you are Dangote's daughter and he must enter into that Dangote setting. So he's
Hmm.
not complaining about anything, but it means they are not getting to know him. So always think of access. They say if two siblings enter a room and they come out smiling, they didn't tell each other the truth.
Hmm.
This is to make the point that the truth can really be bitter sometimes,
Hmm.
but sometimes you are the only option this person has to hear it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you don't tell them, you are dropping the ball. So
Hmm.
don't say, oh, I just didn't say anything because of peace.
Hmm.
Because you will have peace for a time and then you will fight a bigger battle in future. I tell people, if your
Hmm.
mother-in-law is harassing you, don't just keep quiet and smile. Because what would happen is that you will continue to bottle up all of these hurts, all of
Hmm.
these things, and then one day she will do something tiny
And you flare up.
and you will flare up, you will pop your cork. because
Mm.
it's many issues on top of issues that you're
Yeah.
reacting to. But
Mm.
every onlooker would say, you're just overreacting. This person
Mm.
doesn't have home training. So the
Mm.
same way you would tell your mom, Mommy, what you said to me yesterday made me feel sad. Mommy, what's
Mm.
the problem? I'm
Mm.
your daughter. Approach her and broach that issue. My mother and I, we had a very difficult relationship at the start, but we had
Mm.
one conversation, one
Mm.
life-changing conversation where I told her, she said, you're not warm enough. I've been watching you. There's no evil in you at all. I've watched you now. I've been married to her son for about 10 years then. So there's no evil at all in you, but you're reserved. And
Mm.
everybody says you don't warm up to them enough. I said, the reason I'm not warming up to you is I'm being careful because you don't
Mm.
want me. I think maybe you had some view of the kind of person you wanted your son to marry, and I don't fit it. So there's no acceptance. That's why I'm being careful with you. I'm weighing my words. I'm not relating with you with freedom. And she said, oh, how can you say that? Anyway, both of us talked at length. But I think after then, our relationship had a chance to work. As
Mm.
opposed to if I was just accepting everything that she was doing, and she was just accepting everything I was doing.
Mm.
Now,
Mm.
if I do something and she doesn't like it, she calls me and she says, yesterday was remembrance of my husband's passing. You didn't call me. Instead of bottling it up, she will say, oh, I expect you people to remember that date and to just call.
Mm.
I would remember him on that day and I will feel lonely.
Mm.
Children to call and show support. And I
Yeah.
didn't hear from you that day. So we have that kind of relationship now. But if we were just sweeping all our issues under the carpet, till today
Mm.
we will still be fighting.
So communication, and again, we're back to where we
Everything
were. Communication is quite important.
is
We have
everything.
there's always going to be issues, and when they happen, if we are able to talk about it, lay the cards down, and then it's the way we approach it. Like I said, pelela kola, but there's a
I know.
male and
We
female
always have to be positive.
way in your approach. It's not like, you did this to me, da, 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 in an angry way. You speak to the like in the case of your mother-in-law, you speak to her like your mother.
I
How
know.
you speak to your, because some people they even pray, I don't wish to have a mother-in-law. Da, da, da. And
Oh,
I said, like, no, I live with my mother-in-law for over a year. And did she hurt me in those times? Of course. But when we were leaving the house, and the only reason we lived there was because my father-in-law passed within 3 months of us getting married, and we lived close to each other. So we locked our house, moved just to keep her company. So we just
oh,
left our house, and we were there for a year until the 1 year, and then we went back. And when we were going back, and she called me, she like, Fumi, honestly, my friends are like, they've never seen a wife
oh,
like you. Like, no, but
oh,
like, she's not come to report to me. People will be like,
oh.
this is my daughter-in-law. She did when she does things, sometimes, and then again, sometimes we don't have to fight every battle in terms of,
I
sometimes
know. You have to choose your
choose
battles.
your battle. Sometimes if you just have to allow people a leeway, because sometimes they may not necessarily know. If you're too picky and bickering, is
I
that what they say?
know.
Every little thing, oh, she looked at me one way, oh, she said this, excuse me, for goodness sake, she's a human being like you. Sometimes
I
we would have,
know.
so we should learn to overlook things and
Be
let
tolerant of
go,
others.
be tolerant of others, just assume that she's a different generation. She sees things differently. I remember I bought a shoe. She's like, how much did you pay for 3,500 slippers? This was a long time ago. Since that day, I never tell her how much I pay for slippers.
Oh,
It's just things like that, just to understand how to things. So it's wisdom. May God give us wisdom. I realize that we've got past. I haven't seen any question, but anyway, maybe later people who would watch this later would drop in their questions, or perhaps maybe they're already there on Facebook. They haven't given permission, and so we can't see it on this live stream. But whatever the case might be, we would look at them later and talk. I mean, I can see that this topic is going to different layers, so this there might be a part two at some point, because we haven't really gone so deep about other issues. But I realize we're so time bound and so constrained, and so kind of. But it's so wonderful having you today. Honestly,
thank you
thank
so
you so much.
much.
Thank you to all of you that have been watching. We've had a lot of nuggets from you. We have communication with the type of people we talk to. Don't necessarily talk to somebody older. Talk to somebody wiser. Wise is the
Mm-hmm.
key word.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if your pastor, if you think that you're not comfortable enough with them, find somebody who you think, can help you go to have communication. Constant communication at all times is important. Conflict is important aspect of life. We can't avoid it. It will happen. It's how we handle it that determines the smoothness of the relationship. And I don't know, maybe there's anything you want to say before, like in closing, before I finish. Just I'm just gonna finish in like
No,
in
it's just to say that we should keep the communication lines open. As you said, this is the most important thing that we talked about today. As
mm,
friends, don't say, "Oh, I don't want to hurt her."
mm,
For the sake of peace, I'm not going to talk about that. Yes, you
mm,
don't talk about every issue, because if you
mm,
raise every issue, you will come across as a petty person. So you have to
mm,
choose your battles with care and caution. But
mm,
the things that you talk about, some of the things will change. You have to be accepting of the other person also. Don't say,
mhm,
I've talked about this, it must change this very moment. You have to be tolerant, as you said, give the other person some leeway.
mm,
And you always have to be positive. When you
mm.
are coming across as negative, you have to always speak the truth in love. Yes, you are
Yes.
right, but it doesn't give you the liberty to be unkind, unfair, and uncouth.
Hmm, hmm,
So
hmm,
still always be positive, even though you have the advantage in this case, you know better than the other person.
hmm,
Always be positive
hmm,
as you talk
hmm,
to people. And that goes a long way. There's certain things that if you say the wrong way, the person will just clam up
hmm,
and you
hmm,
won't get the cooperation that you're looking for. But if
hmm.
you come across the right way, you'll be surprised at how much the person is willing to compromise just because you said it the right way.
Absolutely. And I'll just say, you know what, when you are in a situation where especially when the heat is on,
Mhm.
sometimes it's okay to,
To
what,
leave it alone.
excuse me, leave it alone.
Hmm.
Or if you think that okay, it's kind of important, just take a break. Say to the person, let the person know that, can I just take a break
I
off?
know. I
Let me
know.
go think about this, calm down, and then come back and discuss when you're
I
both
know.
sane. Because when the
Hmm.
heat is on, so it's difficult for you to communicate, it's difficult for you to hear each other. Don't allow that heated moment to destroy your relationship, because you both could have genuine reasons for whatever the
Hmm.
conflict might be. But
Hmm.
because when you're not calm, one person is not calm enough to hear the other person, the heat is, you're going higher, the next person is going, you go higher, that person is going, and then you're never going to resolve it. So it's okay to go away, but remember, in any conflict situation, whoever goes away is the one to come back and say, okay,
Hmm.
now I'm calm enough to have these conversations, talk
Can we
about,
talk now?
get counsel, find a way, apologize, but we're all human, and give leeway to people. So
Hmm.
thank you so much to everyone
Thank,
who's been watching. Thank you so much, Okubo, for joining us today. And we can't
thank
wait to have you at
you.
another time. And if we see any questions, we will just reply to it at the different time. Thank you so much, all. And yeah,
Thank
we'll bring
you.
you another guest next month. Until then, bye
Take
bye.
care. Goodbye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.